Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm here in beautiful Yerushalayim, Shel Zahav, where I'm living. It's not so particularly beautiful right here, but you can see the beautiful Jerusalem stone. I'm going to tell you about this week's Parsha, which is Pinchas. It's named Pinchas for the guy that does this zealous act at the beginning of the Parsha. So Pinchas is Aaron's grandson, so he's a Kohen. I mean, he's from the Aaronic line, the line of Aaron, but also from the tribe of Levi. And because Pinchas is a grandson of Aaron, he's also in line to be one of the Kohanim, one of the priests in the temple. So what happens at the beginning of the Parsha is these two people are acting inappropriately in front of the tent of meeting where, important people meet in the Jewish community. They're acting inappropriately, and Pinchas rises up. That's what the text says, that he rises up and kills both of them in this sort of violent act. And then he's bestowed upon this brit shalom, this covenant of peace. It's quite confusing because what he does is he violently kills two people and then he's given a covenant of peace. What we know about Aaron and Aaron's descendants, again, Aaron, Moshe's brother, Moses' brother, who was a priest. What they say about Aaron in our text is, Aaron ohev shalom vehu rodef shalom, that he loved peace and chased after peace. So it makes sense that someone from the line of Aaron would get a brit shalom, but someone from the line of Aaron to kill two people in cold blood for doing something wrong doesn't really fit. And so that's why this guy Pinchas was looked at in such a positive way, that he rose up from the way that he normally was, which was calm, always in the Beit Midrash, always studying, always learning, rose up and did what needed to be done. There were a lot of people around, but none of them took care of the problem that was happening. And this is a message that we see throughout Jewish text, an early story of Moshe, that when Moses was first sort of discovering that he was a Jew, or understanding that he was a Jew, he was out amongst the Hebrew workers, and he saw an old man being beaten by a Egyptian taskmaster, and no one's doing anything. The text says that Moshe looked this way and to the other, and he saw no man. You could think that maybe Moshe was looking around to see if there would be anyone to see that he did something wrong, but the real interpretation of the text is, Moshe looked, is anyone doing anything about this? Moshe looked, is anyone doing anything about this? And no one was. But he stood up and did what needed to be done. It was a departure from his character, in the same way that it was a departure from Pinchas's character. Unusual to take a departure, but it was the right thing to do. He did not fall prey to the bystander effect, which is where you think, oh, there's other people around, perhaps they'll do something about it. No, Pinchas stood up and did what was meant to be done, and that's why he was given this brit shalom. The other important characters this week are the daughters of Tzlofchad, so Banot Tzlofchad. These were women who were the daughters of this man who died, and at the time, the inheritance of land that you were given only went to sons of men, but the Banot Tzlofchad didn't have any brothers, and so they went to Moses and they said, our father, was a good man. He didn't join in with Korach and his group, but he has no sons, and so his land, his portion of the land of Israel, won't be bestowed upon his descendants. Please bestow it upon us, his daughters. And the reason that it matters is because the daughters the land that was from their tribe, which was Shevet Menashe. So Menashe was one of Joseph's sons, and we know that Joseph loved the land of Israel. His bones were brought and buried in the land of Israel, and so we know the descendants of Joseph really love and treasure the land of Israel. So of course Menashe, being the son of Joseph, would treasure and value the land of Israel. So it was important to Banot Tzlofchad to have connection to not just any piece of land, but the piece of land that was supposed to be for Shevet Menashe, so the piece of land that was for the descendants of Joseph. And Moses says, yeah, done, you can have it. And it's like this beautiful, people are like, oh, look what a nice little feminist reclamation of the land. It also shows what lacking ego leader that Moses was. And that relates us to our next point, which is about, in this Parsha, we learned who's going to be the next leader of the Jewish people, Yehoshua. Yehoshua was one of the spies who went into the land of Israel and who came back with a favorable report. As we know, a lot of the spies that went in came back and said the land of Israel is very strange. We shouldn't be going in there. Of course, we know this is when the Jews are still traveling from the land of Egypt and they haven't gotten to Israel yet. And the spies that went in and said, ugh, this is an odd place, they didn't have emunah, they didn't have faith. But Yehoshua and Caleb, the two spies who did have favorable reports about the land of Israel, were rewarded. Moses was the greatest leader that the Jewish people have ever had. But in this week's Parsha, we get his successor. Moses doesn't make it into the land of Israel. He took the Jewish people from Egypt into the land, traveling 40 years in the desert, and he doesn't get to make it in. And what does this teach us? This teaches us that Moses, our greatest leader, even though he didn't make it to the land of Israel, even though he didn't get to finish the story, he still was a giant part of the story. And so we learned that even though Moses didn't get his lifelong dream of getting to the land of Israel, he still was a huge, important person in Jewish history and still got to have an impact. And so that's what we have to ask ourselves. Is it about getting to the finish line, or is it about making the impact where we can? I think it's just really inspiring that Moses, our greatest leader, didn't even get to the land of Israel. That what a privilege it is to be staying in the land of Israel, the place that Moses never got to arrive to. It's such a gift for all of us. So the themes are, don't be a bystander, be like Pinchas, stand up when the right thing to do is the right thing to do, and be the person who's willing to do it. If something is special to you and important to you, ask for it, because you might get it, like the situation of Benot Tzlofchad. And the third thing is, make an impact where you can make an impact. Moses was the greatest leader, but he didn't get to finish his story. And just because you don't get to finish to get to X, Y, and Z, these goals, it doesn't mean that you've not accomplished something unbelievable. We should all hope to have the impact that Moses did. And he didn't even get to the land of Israel. So those are the messages. Shabbat Shalom. God willing, I'll see you all next week.